Dylan Farrell.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, from the Casper Star-Tribune, and I'm Inda Eaton. And my thinking is couldn't be a more perfect place to be here at the David Street Station with Brian's Brian's plaque. Brian was a good friend of mine, so I think it's beautiful that we're here talking.
So you mentioned earlier that you grew up in this place. You haven't really lived here since the station, came to fruition. What could you talk about what this change means, developing a community center for, in downtown Casper like this? Well, downtown-ish.
I don't think I can put the huge big spin on it because I don't know all the details, but I will say to you, this is it's glorious. I've driven by here my whole life, and you always think this would be a great place to have community. This would be a great place to have music. Again, we're sitting by Brian's plaque. Brian thought that too. We all did. And so to come here and have it so actualized, I've seen it for years. I've always wanted to play here. Never have been able to. Just the timing didn't work out. And so what an honor. And I think there's something very poetic about the first time playing here at Pride on Saturday. I'm fired up.
What type of connection do you have with Casper Pride?
Well, Casper Pride is Casper Pride is practically as new as the station. We're 10 years in, and when I was here living here, there was no Pride. A very, very different, what do you call, underground community for the queer community. So the fact that we have 10 years of this is genius. It's just beautiful. And so there's a lot to celebrate of 10 years of showing up for Pride. And yet I think there's more to come. I think it can even get more exciting and more blown out.
And you talked about an underground community. Could you elaborate on that a little bit, like what it was, if you have any kind of an inside angle, what it was like before, Casper Pride developed?
Well, I'm not so polished on this, so I'm just going to speak from the heart. Really kind of sad in a way. Sad for me. I won't put that it's sad for everybody. Sad for me in that this was just something, if you identified in any capacity, legitimate, all the letters and the numbers have gotten a little more expansive. So I'll just call it the queer community. It was underground. And a real don't ask, don't tell vibe. I'm sure people thought, oh, so-and-so identifies as gay or they're this, but you didn't really ask about it and you didn't talk about it. And I don't think we just didn't have we didn't have that dialogue. When I was living here and a youngster, so to speak, there was no marriage equality. So I think my gut, and I don't know the stats of Casper Pride, I imagine marriage equality really got people out of the shadows and into a shape where we could have Casper Pride. That's my hunch. You got to ask the good folks at Casper Pride, but that's my hunch. I think that was a game changer. And again, that didn't happen overnight. And I think things we watch on the news, like marriage equality, I think Wyoming, as we even talk about some of the stories you're covering, I would call them hate crimes, really. That's a place, it fits perfect with Wyoming. Just be under the shadows, don't ask, don't tell, don't be ruffled. So even if marriage equality is going on, Wyoming's not going to be blooming about that all too soon. My gut is Wyoming was not an early adopter of that energy. That's my gut. And that's my personal experience. I didn't come out or identify in the queer community until a little later in my 20s. So I was just a late bloomer. And it was a very difficult environment to live my true self. Wyoming was a very difficult environment.
And, I don't want to get too much into the downer aspects of things, but kind of an elephant in the room whenever you're talking about Pride or something like that. I will say political climate has shifted pretty heavily in the opposite direction. It was blowing in 2016. Do you think that weighs on the importance of having events like this in venues or in places like Wyoming, just being open and out and really showing that you're here?
I think it's huge. I think it's so huge. Boy, I could do an hour on this. And I think we were talking about storytelling earlier. I think you have to have the inciting incident. I think you have to have the downer moment before you can then go to and as a result, good things happen, part of the story. I think the rhetoric is it's hot. And I think folks my gut is most folks are not evildoers. I don't think most folks get up in the morning and say, well, I'm just going to go be down on my brothers and sisters who identify in the queer community or any other community. I really don't think folks do that. I think folks are busy living their lives. They want equality and they want justice and freedom for all. Having said that, there's just a tremendous heated rhetoric, even covering the political spectrum. From the sports, how do we give parity for transgender in sports? How do we deal with people transitioning? It's really heated, hateful rhetoric. And I bet you the people, I've had the conversations at my own kitchen table. We were all talking about sports earlier. It is a great question. With people transitioning or transgendered, however they identify, how do you handle that in sports? And there has been no great answer that I have heard yet. But that doesn't mean that there's not a solution somewhere. And in that heated discussion, I'll just zero in on sports. We're all very passionate about sports. The passion goes, and people forget that these are young people who are developing, who are human beings. And I don't even care if you're young, old. We're all just these human beings who have tremendous empathy, joy, and emotions in our heart. And so to speak of people and get in these heated arguments, even on a sports issue, man, people, I feel it. It feels horrible. It feels so bullying. And I do not think that people go out of their way to stir up this kind of incendiary speech, but I think it does trickle down. I'm an actualized woman. I'm fine. I'm not going to sit there. I'm not 16 worried about competing in a sport, but it makes me sad. It's like, who wants to open the paper and read hateful op-eds? Who wants to read, very inflammatory, incendiary statements by community representatives, people who do politics? It does trickle down, and I don't think we have to do a study on it. Who wants to feel trashed? Who? Nobody wants to feel trashed, and I think the rhetoric is hot. And it is an honor to come here to Wyoming to even have these conversations.
And as it pertains to the rhetoric, you talk a lot about nobody wants to be trashed. I think that's a pretty safe statement that you just made, that you just said.
That's the T-shirt. Nobody wants to be trashed. Well, you know what? How about this? I will say another good one on that one. I saw this. So I was, we're working with the Natrona County Health Department has a beautiful campaign about anti-stigma and, creating, I don't know, what's the word? Creating a safe space ideology for all people. And I read one of the tiles. It was for Instagram or whatever. And the tile said, "Don't be your child's first bully." And I thought, that's the only tile you need. Don't be your child's first bully. You say, what if you don't have children? It's like, well, we're all children. We're children. We have children. We're all part of the community. So don't be your child's first bully. And if that one idea got out there, that takes care of a lot of the flotsam and jetsam.
And how, as far as the rhetoric goes, I don't know how plugged in you were to political issues in your youth, but as far as the rhetoric goes, have you observed any differences or similarities between the tone of a lot of these, we'll say, people who are, well, a difference or similarities in the tone, really, of many of these representatives who are using inflammatory rhetoric relative to your youth back before pride
back in the
and
day.
Equality and
do I remember? Not as much, no, because I think the civil discourse was a little. If there were comments that were flown, which I'm sure they were, fear of the others is not a new thing. I'm sure that was the time of Aristotle and Plato walking around in their peripatetic circles. I get that, but I think this has now gone into the public political space. I'm sure we all have our bar room or coffee house talks about our political issues, but my take was it was not in the mainstream. I think there was a sensitivity, even though we in this country didn't do a great job with, I'll give you one, AIDS, for example. We were really slow on that. It wasn't until people in the art community and the people spoke up from their perspective that we got a compassionate, empathetic view of AIDS, for example. Well, I think the government maybe didn't jump on that bandwagon. In fact, they did not. They didn't put inflammatory statements like we would hear today on it. They just did nothing. There's a difference. So now there's times where we do nothing, but we also say horrible things. And then somebody says to you, well, you can't take inflaming horrible words. It's like, suppose you can. But that builds. And I think that inflammatory rhetoric, like, who does that help? That's some zero-sum thinking. Who does that help? And if you truly are, as a representative of the community, trying to figure out, I'll give you the example, how we can make parity in sports, I don't think the pathway's through inflammatory hate speech. I think it's through, well, let's try to figure out how we could make this work.
Mm-hmm. And bringing it back around, I mean, you're coming back here to your old hometown, right? To really just play music, help support this celebration that's going to be going on Saturday. Could you talk a little bit about your music and how it would relate to a celebration like Pride?
It's a great question. It's always about the music, and I think we were talking earlier about storytelling. And as a musician, that type of storytelling, the music does the speaking. I'm ripping that off from AM 1400 K2 Classic Cowboy. That's the only station my car gets on this trip. And I think their slogan is, we let the music do the talking, and music can do that. I think the music alone, I think it's quantum. I don't think we even have to have a round table about that. Music always does the talking. Mm-hmm. As it relates to being here in Pride, well, I'm over the moon. I love Casper. I love Wyoming. I am so honored to be home. And so to bring my music back, which, look, my music launched in Casper. I got my first start at Hilltop Music, okay? I made my first demo in their studio. Larry Berger had that, and Spencer Boren helped make my CD. He produced that. So my start came here in Casper. This man here, Brian was an early adapter, however that goes, played my music on K2, Bob Price. Bob and Brian were huge supporters of my music. Mm-hmm. And Don Woods before Grady at the University of Wyoming, huge supporters. I was launched from Casper, Wyoming. Mm-hmm. And it's never gone out of my soul. My brother lives here. My sister's in Cody. My parents both graduated from NC, class of 60, 63. So my blood runs Casper. My blood runs Wyoming. You asked about Pride. I have never had the opportunity to come here on behalf of the queer community and stand with them, stand shoulder to shoulder, and just, I think, celebrate the openness of it, just celebrating our voices, which you would like to think always could happen, but I don't think it always did. Mm-hmm. I'm not saying that folks walked around here hiding under trees or something, but I don't think we were open in an outdoor amphitheater celebrating pride and diversity. Mm-hmm. And crack up on that, diversity seems to be a political word. I don't think we ever learned diversity as a political word. It's a word, diversity. And I think we're all better with some diversity. I mean, we just are. We were laughing about that, and the humor side of it, I was laughing because at a festival like, you go to Greek Fest and you get a falafel, and you can't wait to go eat the tiramisu at the Italian Fest, and, you go on, and, the Latin American Fest, they'll do the street tacos or whatever the hell's going on. So you think, well, what do you do at Pride? Well, it turns out that queer people do love a taco, and they love a hamburger, and so I don't think we have a food group at a festival, but here's the thing. We got riffing on it. It's like, Well, straight people owe a huge debt of gratitude because they wouldn't be getting designed anything at Target if it wasn't for the queer community. The straight people of America, maybe we don't get a falafel, but you get tremendous design, tremendous chi, tremendous mojo. You get all of our hearts. And so I think it's a celebration of the artistic spirit and the creative and the curious. I think we all need each other.
Yeah, really. I mean, where would rock music be without Elton John?
I mean, this is the laughable thing, and it occurs only in a place like Casper. And I always like to think like what is and what could be, and what was in my youth here was really underground suppression of the queer community, and then it's now what is, and it's opening. My take, and we could argue about this, I think Wyoming and Casper have always had this almost, well, we don't love, in fact, we hate the sin, but we'll love the sinner. In fact, somebody told me that as if it would make me feel better. I was told this by a very prominent local person. Yeah, we love you, but we do not love this. We hate the sin. We won't even look at the sin. And I bring that up because I think that was the energy even when Matthew Shepard was killed. You know, Matthew was from here, and the town was appalled, I think, by the injustice and the hatred and the loss. But at the same time, I don't think the town could fully, the community people could really wrap their head around what it is to be queer and what that even means. It's like there were no words for it. This is in the public sphere. And so what is, we're gathering here at this beautiful venue to celebrate our uniqueness and our diversity and all of our voices. And I think what could be, I think we can expand that, and it's not really even, I guess it is a call to action. I would just love if we could tone down some of the hateful rhetoric, which again, I don't think people know. I don't think they get up in the morning thinking this is going to be, I'm going to go out and say hateful rhetoric. It just comes out. It's so destabilizing. And I was just spending time up at the college with these young people. Oh my God, they have so much hope. They have dreams, just like everybody. We all have hopes and dreams. Every age, hope and dream. And you don't got hope, what do you got? I'd like to see this just continue and to get even more joyful. We're going to have joy on Saturday, and they have so many, activities with Casper Pride all week. But what would I like to see? Even more of it. Just connect the joy more.
Anything else that you would like
are
to
we still
share?
rolling?
Yeah.
I would only do a take two and say, we've talked a lot about Pride, and I love that, and I'm honored to be part of Pride. Somebody reminded me the other day, it was actually one of the other media outlets. They said, well, I thought you were an indie rocker. And I said, well, I am an indie rocker, and we do both. I just happen to be in the queer community. I'm queer. But our job is rock and roll. Our job is music. Music heals. And I think it's the only quantum space that just goes so way above wherever we are. It just takes you quantum. Sometimes you don't even know what a song is about. You'd be putting something on even in 1400 K2 radio, and I'm like, I don't know these people, but I feel something. I feel alive, and I feel connected to the great tradition of hope. And that's where music is so much fun place to tell stories. So when you guys are done being journalists, we're going to get you in a rock band.
Oh, I don't know. I don't know if I've got it. I tried to learn sheet music when I was a kid. I played guitar for a couple of years. That was a disaster.
Honey, we're going to tear that up. We're just going to get into rock and roll. Everybody's welcome. Same as Pride. And that's not that. I would say one more thing. That's the joke of it. I'm coming for Pride, and I tell my brother, we're doing Pride Fest on Saturday. He said, that's not on my radar. I said, you need to get it on your radar. Nobody's going to be down here in Dracula capes trying to recruit you to the other side. It's a celebration of life and people, just like we would go to any other festival to celebrate people. So please, if you've made it this far in this ramble trap of a discussion, come on down Saturday. We're going to have a good time.